All right, Mike, so my plan is to do a UFC-style weight cut. We'll talk later, I guess, about how much I realistically can lose.
Yeah.
But I just want to show people how it can be done safely and the right way. And we're going to talk a little bit about how some of the horror stories. Now, what have you heard? I mean, from fighters who've come to you over the years.
Sure.
What have you heard from them as far as like stuff that previous diet coaches told them?
Well, we've been fortunate or cursed, depending on the way you look at it, that usually the athletes with the biggest weight problems and the most horrific past experiences have come to us for help. That's, you know, kind of how we made our bones inside the industry. Now, I have stories from athletes of their past teams and coaches literally dragging them in and out of saunas at 180 plus degrees Fahrenheit, 200 plus degrees Fahrenheit, packed in plastic bags with sweatsuits, and their coach literally leaning on the door for 30, 60 minutes, not allowing them to come out, even with them passing out. The coaches will literally go in there, slap them in the face, lift their legs up to get some blood flow back to their core mass, to get their brain kind of functioning again, and not even take them out. I mean, completely malnourishing them, dehydrating them days before, weeks before competition, running at a caloric deficit weeks before competition. Everything contrary to competing optimally is what these athletes were doing on the eve of the most important athletic performance of their life. So it's a pretty scary world out there. Even still in this day and age, 2016, 2017, the athletes and teams are still operating as they were 100 years ago, putting burlap sacks on themselves and shadow boxing in barns like the old school boxers would do. That's typically what they're doing right now.
And how frustrating is it as a diet coach to see someone weigh in, when they're weighing in, you can tell they're just have no energy left, and then you see them fight, and it's not, and they don't put on a good effort, they don't put on a good show because they can't. How frustrating is that for you as a UFC fan, as someone who's in the industry?
I mean, I'm a former fighter and wrestler and competitive power lifter, so I've been cutting weight since I was 13 years old, and I've been tortured by coaches that are uneducated in the science, the biological sciences. I'm, kind of the recipient of that type of damage, so I'm well aware of it now, being educated and running the business that we do. I'm very cautious of what's happening inside the industry. So I become extremely frustrated because the athlete will work with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. They'll work with typically a world-class striking coach. When it comes to nutrition, they're working with some dude with a big pecs from the gym. They're not working with world-class nutrition teams. They're working with these pseudo self-styled nutritionists that aren't legally licensed, they're not qualified, they're not educated, and they're operating contrary to federal law, which is very important, right? Because what we're talking about is called medical nutrition therapy, which governs the administration of nutrition programs for athletes in combat sports and athletes involved in weight class oriented sports. It's very, very serious health issues that can manifest, as we're aware of, as a result of that type of barbaric treatment. So when I see an athlete on the scale that looks like they're absolutely dying, they go out and have a lackluster performance, they get beaten by someone that they probably shouldn't have lost to, they don't get the 50% bonus on their paycheck. A lot of them miss weight, so they get 20% deducted, given back to the athlete and the commission. They don't move to the next tier of their contract, where if you win your fight, you move to the next tier, which is a higher pay grade. They don't move towards that. They typically lose sponsors, and their job is at risk because the organization doesn't want to put lackluster athletes onto their card, simply because, in my opinion, they're following the wrong advice from unqualified teams and individuals, risking their health, but also risking their careers.
Yeah, how many, I know there's been several over the years, and Griffin and others, Forrest Griffin and others, who may have had their careers cut short by this kind of weight cutting. Is how dangerous is it? And we've seen guys hospitalized for blockages in their intestines, kidney stones. How serious could a bad weight cut be?
It's
and how dire
life-threatening.
could it be?
Weight cutting is life-threatening. We are one of the first and only teams to say weight cutting is not good. In any capacity, weight cutting is not healthy. If we look at science, at just a 2% reduction in overall body weight through dehydration, cognitive performance will drop. Cardiovascular output will drop. Visuospatial awareness, which will be reduced. That's my ability to see you, gauge distance, and track your movement. Now, if you're trying to punch and kick me in the head, and my ability to track that and react to that is diminished a split second, that's the difference between blocking a head kick or having it land flush in my skull, causing secondary collision of the brain against the skull wall, which is further made, further enhanced through the lack of cerebral spinal fluid from the reduction in water weight through dehydration. That can take up to 48 hours, a minimum of 48 hours to fully replenish itself without a massive weight cut, let's say above 3%, 5%, 8%. So at just that 2% level, that's a 200-pound person losing 4 pounds to 196. Now, the average UFC middleweight typically walks around about 210 pounds, and they have to weigh in at 186. So we're talking about a 24-pound swing, which is close to a 10% body mass reduction in a short period of time. So it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous, and done the wrong way, it can be deadly. It truly can, and there will be lifelong repercussions as a result of a career spent cutting weight the wrong way.